Hello and welcome to day 4. This is area of circles and sectors, and so we're going to start by finding the area of each circle and the circumference of each circle. So we need to remember what the formula is for area of a circle. Well, area of a circle is in square units because that's how we find area. Area is always little squares put inside the shape, and so most of you guys remember that it is pi times the radius squared. Now the circumference is the distance around the outside, so it's a linear distance, so there's only one variable in this, and so that is pi times the diameter, or if we in these cases we don't have the diameter, but we know the diameter is equal to 2 radii, so we would write it as 2 pi r. And so there's only one variable, the r or the d, in these guys, so it's a linear distance, and so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about circumference and area of a circle. So we're asking you to find the area and the circumference of each one of these circles when I'm giving you the radius. So if I ask to find the area, which is how many little squares would cover this, if I could say, okay, well, area is going to be pi times my radius, which is 10 squared, which in terms of pi, I'm going to get 100 pi yards squared. Pi I could multiply, use an approximation for pi, and if I did that, I believe I will get the area. If I use 3.14 for my approximation of pi, the area is going to be 314 yards squared. Now, if you use the pi button on your calculator, you'll get a few more decimal points after that, and it'll be like 314.15, whatever, so on and so forth, yards. So you just have to round. And so then if I'm going to ask you to find the circumference, well, the circumference of the circle is either using the diameter times pi or 2 pi r, and I have to think, well, I'm given the radius, so I'm going to use this one over here, and so I'm going to say 2 times pi times 10. Well, in terms of pi, my answer is 20 pi yards, and so that's what I get when I take when I multiply this out in terms of pi. And so then if I was to multiply it through by pi, say I wanted a decimal equivalent, then it would be something like 62.8 yards would be my circumference of this circle over here. Same deal for the next one. I'm going to ask you to find the area of this circle. Well, the area is going to be using pi times the radius squared, so pi times my 6 squared, which in terms of pi would be 36 pi millimeters squared. If I want to figure out what that is as a decimal, then I would need to multiply that by pi, and again I'm using the decimal equivalent of 3.14, which gives me 113.04 millimeters squared when I find the area of that one. And so then circumference, if I'm going to do circumference of this one, again I'm given the radius, so I'm not going to use the diameter formula, but if it was given a line all the way across, then I'd use the diameter formula, but I'm going to say 2 times pi times my radius of 6. Well, in terms of pi, my circumference is 12 pi, and if I was to multiply this out using 3.14 as my approximation for pi, I would get 37.68 millimeters for my circumference. Now in class we're going to take this one step further. Instead of finding the area of the whole circle, we're going to find areas of sectors, which is parts of circles. And so I want you to kind of think about how you would find the area of part of a circle if you knew the angle that it was made up and stuff like that. And we'll talk more about that when we get in class. But please come prepared to class please come prepared, and please ask if you have any questions on any of these.